Matt, blue skies, brother.
How you doing? Blue skies, that's it.
Yes, I'm delighted to chat with you, mate. It's you have a fascinating you have a fascinating history, an amazing YouTube channel. I suggest anybody listening just surfs over there and checks out Matt's channel. It's everything aviation and drones. I'm trying to pick my techno words carefully here, especially as a pilot, albeit only a private one. But yes, what a history you've got, mate.
Yeah, it's been a busy 36 years, eh?
Wow. Is that from when you first started flying remote control stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I obsessed with aviation and flying since I was a kid, and it's all I ever wanted to do. And I think that has kind of led over into where I am now. So yeah, we're 36 years into it all, and yeah, it's managed to squeeze a lot in, I think.
Yeah, and drones, Matt, it really is. I mean, drones are not just the item of tech equipment at the moment. There's also a whole field of controversy that it's chucked up, hasn't it, with respect to staying on the right side of the law, and of course, moreover, aviation safety, which probably wasn't something that people thought about back when drones first appeared on the scene.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. But first of all, let's just go back to the beginning when you joined the RAF, or when did you start flying?
So crikey, yeah, like I say, it's all I ever wanted to do, and I think kind of going back to the beginning, I joined the Air Cadets and became a spacey, as they call themselves, and did all of that. I did a gliding scholarship at 16 and went solo in a motor glider. And got bitten by the bug even deeper, I guess. That's, it's just one of those things. Once it's got you, and, yourself doing your private flying, I guess you'll have picked up on this in the past as well, potentially. But yeah, once it's got you, right?
Yes, I've got probably a bit of a different story to most people there, but I'll come on to that later. What's a motor glider? I've not heard that expression before.
So essentially, looks like a glider as you'd expect, big wings and all that sort of stuff. But there's an engine on the front, a conventional engine and propeller on the front, and you can take off and land the aeroplane yourself. So as it was, where I did my gliding scholarship with the Air Cadets, the gliding squadron, the volunteer gliding school I did that with, they didn't have conventional gliders. They had these motor gliders. So we could taxi out, take off, fly around for, however long we wanted to, really, to get the exercises done, and then come in to land again. So it was quite cool because it was a bit more than a traditional kind of gliding scholarship, if you like. So yeah.
Do you need a license then to fly them? I mean, a aeroplane license?
Kind of, and actually the regs have changed over the years surrounding them. So like a glider, you don't need a license to fly. You just go and do the different kind of staged qualifications that the gliding schools and clubs have. But it's not the same as a private pilot's license at all. And the motor gliders, you can add them on as a rating to a private pilot's license, so you can go and get your license and then add those on as a self-launch motor glider. That seems to be the way most people do that, if you like.
Gliding, I've never done it. I've never been in a glider. It looks amazing. It looks so graceful, and the scenery and the experience must be incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
Is there what's the element of fear like? I guess it varies for everybody.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's like most things, right? Whatever you become normalized, whatever is normal to you, and you've experienced fear in certain ways throughout your career in the past, the same as I have in the military side of things. And, I'm sure you can attest to this, right? It's one of those things that actually eventually you become normalized against it, and everything's so procedural. And it's the same I find when you're flying. If you're the one who isn't busy, if it's your first time in a glider and you don't know what's going on and all that sort of stuff, then I can see how that could be quite scary. Same in any aeroplane. But actually, if it's all explained to you and you understand what's going on, and particularly if you're given something to do that's part of the process, then actually it takes your mind off it and the fear element. I don't know. I've never felt it personally. I've never felt scared or felt that fear element from any aspect of my flying, but certain situations definitely where you're like, oh, it's got the instant sweat on. But but for me, it's not a problem. I understand though. For some people, it's like they go rigid right at the thought of getting on an airliner even, and
I'm thinking back to sort of, I don't know if parallel experiences is the right word, because obviously I've never been in a glider, but I remember when skydiving, when your chute is finally opened, or you finally open your chute, you can really yank down on one of your toggles and it starts putting you into a spin, and it's great for sort of 2 or 3 revolutions. And then suddenly you start to think, gosh, if I pull too hard, if I collapse this chute.
Yeah, it's gonna get emotional.
And I'm quite happy at that moment, Matt. So right, stop it. Just have a little wheelie, and then that's enough. And the other time I was flying back to Fort Pierce from a small strip called Okeechobee in the Cessna that the flight school had, and I suddenly hit turbulence, and I hadn't experienced that in any of my lessons, only obviously when I've flown on airliners.
Yeah.
And I've had it really bad on airliners before, but when you're on your own in that small cockpit and the plane is just going up by 6 feet and then suddenly down, whoa, yeah. There was a moment of, I don't really want to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, a bit too late. Not much choice at that point. But yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think that's the thing for me with flying full stop. That's where my fascination, whether it's, flying the helicopters or fixed wing stuff or the kind of gliding, conventional gliding and motor gliding, it's the fact that you are so ultimately, I suppose, insignificant, and you're at the mercy of not just people and the things around you, but also the world, the earth. For me, it's that, it really is that kind of visceral connection, if you like, with the air that we're in, and you obviously get to feel that when you're being thrown around in turbulence quite a bit. So,
yeah, you also have to make sure you don't hit someone, don't you? Which is, I mean, when I flew in the States, I think they gave you kind of fixed altitudes. If you were flying north, you flew at this altitude, but if you were coming south, you flew at another, just to give a margin of, does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So they have in the States. So I actually did my kind of, after the gliding scholarship and stuff like that, I did my pilot's license out in Florida. Kind of self-funded that from a business that I had while I was at school building computers, weirdly. And went and did my pilot's license when I left school for my A-levels. And it's one of those things in America, because there's so much general aviation out there. There's so many people fly. Like over here now, everyone's got a drone, right? Everyone over there has got an aeroplane, it seems, or certainly once you get into that community, that's how it works. And because the cost is just so much more conducive to doing it over there, I think. But yeah, they have their different cruising levels. So if you're going in different directions against the kind of heading on a compass, you'll cruise at a different level, so the chance of bumping into someone are a lot less. And it's totally built for it as well, right? Like they've got way less controlled airspace, mostly because they've got way more space anyway. So you're not kind of squeezed between Birmingham and East Midlands, and there's a 2-mile wide gap that all of the kind of Cessnas and Robinson helicopters are trying to squeeze through together at the same time. And weather as well, of course, that we're always battling against here. But yeah, they're just set up for it. You know, over there you speak to air traffic and you get a flight following service, and they'll look after you and, you know, do everything they can to tell you about other people and keep you out of the way. And over here it's very, very much different, I think, you know.
Yeah, for our friends at home, in the States, you've got a lot of like ranchers, people that have got an enormous amount of land, so they can have a runway in their back garden, so to speak. And it's just simpler to hop in a plane to go and see your mate 40 miles over there than it is to get in the car. They had something, Matt, called NORADs. Were you familiar with that?
I've heard of NORAD in terms of the like when they launch against enemy.
Oh yeah, no.
Stuff, but...
This is a different thing. It's these old farmer types that don't even have a radio in their plane.
Right.
And they'll just get up there, fly to their mate's farm, fly back again, and no radio procedure at all. So of course, makes them, you know, a very dangerous element, I suppose.
Yeah, quite.
I mean, I'm not even sure what the legal requirements are with respect to that. Obviously, you've got to have a license, which is under it's the FAA in America, isn't it? The Federal Aviation Authority. And what are we? We're the CAA, aren't we? The Civil Aviation Authority. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
But you fly along and you constantly, your eyes are peeled looking for other traffic.
Yeah.
And you can't help but imagine that moment, because if it came, it would just happen so quick. You just a mid-air collision, it doesn't bear thinking about.
No, it doesn't. And I think in America, interestingly though, at the beginning of 2020, they made it mandatory that all aircraft over a certain weight, and I think it's only 500 kilos, so it's all aircraft, you know, basically, apart from, ironically, the very small home-built ones that don't have a radio and you don't need a license for in America, you know, single person, build it in your garage kind of thing, have to have a transponder on that tells people where you are. And because they've made it mandatory and everyone has to have it, actually, I think that's made it really safe, because you know, everyone now flies with an iPad or an iPhone with the map on and, you know, all the GPS mapping, and it feeds into that and it shows you where not everybody is, but where a lot of the other people are, you know, and that's a really good thing, I think. Although a lot of people are like, oh, it's Big Brother watching. Let's not get it into the UK. I'm like, no, we need it in the UK, like more than in America, I'd say. So.
Mm-hmm. Where did you learn to fly? I learned at Fort Pierce. I don't know if you've heard that name.
Yeah. I have flown. I think I did my qualifying cross country was up to St. Augustine. But yeah, I learned to fly at Ormond Beach in Florida, so just outside kind of Daytona Beach.
Yeah, I remember on my exam, so the actual test, I had a Swedish guy. Funny enough, I don't know how he'd managed to find his way over there, but
Epic.
Sven, I think his name was, and we taxied up to the. I'm probably using all the wrong terminology because it was quite a while ago, but I taxied up to the runway, and you know you've got it's a big white stop line. You're not allowed to go over it. You must be really familiar with this in all your years of flying. And there's just one rule: you don't go over that line before you've got is it permission from air traffic control or ground control?
That's right. Yeah, it'd be either or. Yeah, whoever's controlling that piece of tarmac.
Yeah. And I was so sort of preoccupied and those underlying nerves on your test that I taxied out and I completely forgot. And just as we went over it, out the corner of my eye, I saw his leg flinch as he went to hit the brake, because you've obviously got dual controls in a Cessna, so either person can fly it.
Yeah.
And as his leg flinched, I clicked what I'd done, and I slammed the brake on.
Yeah.
Before he had a chance to, and he looked at me and said, "Can you go over that line?" I was like, "No, not without permission from air traffic control." And his that was enough to pacify.
Crikey, good work. Good effort. Oh, dear.
Yes. Did you have any, well, I mean, throughout your career, have you had near misses? What have been your dodgier experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I think everyone who's done any amount of aviation probably has, you know, some tales, right? But yeah, I don't think you can do a few thousand net flying hours in the military on the front line and things like that as well without having had a few scrapes and bumps and bruises. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple. There's I suppose the most interesting one was we were recovering as a formation. So flying as a formation, as we always did when we were doing work over in Iraq in this instance. And we'd been out over the city, dropped some guys off to do what they do. And we're going back to Baghdad International Airport, which is where we were based at the time, to refuel and rearm and then go back out again and extract the guys from the extraction point, the exfil point after the job. And on the way back into the airport, there was a pair of Ospreys, so US Marine Corps Ospreys, that had taken off from pretty much where we were going to land and were coming the opposite way out of Baghdad Airport. And they got told, you know, the Osprey, again, I suppose for those who don't know, can take off like a helicopter. And then it's got the rotors that tilt on the end of the wings. So it kind of accelerate and fly at the speed of a normal aeroplane, really. And if they then want to come into land, you know, I think they can put 30 odd troops down the back of one of those things. Like, it's bigger than a Chinook and a lot faster when it's in aeroplane mode. And the guys have been told that we were coming in as a formation of 5 Pumas and to hold on a certain side of the runway. So they'd taken off and they were in helicopter mode and they were told to hold. Unfortunately, by the time they'd got the message, they'd already gone into aeroplane mode and were, you know, off frequency, heading out into the desert at exactly the point that we were at the time. And we hadn't heard this communication going on because they were on their own frequency and disappearing into the desert, so we thought, but they'd actually turned in our direction. And I was sat in the center seat because we got a new crew coming in and we were trying to kind of get them worked up so that they knew the area and things like that. And I looked across and I was like, guys, is that an Osprey? And as I said, Osprey, we were number 2 in the formation. I saw this Osprey just go the other side of our lead aircraft. And I thought, you know, when the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you think there's something not right here. Because what we used to teach people and what you know, you taught in the military is if you can see an aircraft, find out where their wingman is, because you never fly on your own, particularly in, you know, out in theatre. And I was like, oh my God, that Osprey that I can see is exactly the same distance away that I would be if I was in formation with it to us. And I remember looking out to leaning forwards to look past the pilot who was sat in the right-hand seat at the time and just seeing these big tip lights on the end of the Osprey blades, right, you know, literally 100 feet away from us, bearing down on us. And as I looked and saw it, the crewman also at the same time, I think, had exactly the same thing because he'd spotted the Osprey I'd seen coming out. He looked and he was like, oh my God, brake left descend. And it was just carnage for the next 30 seconds. And I actually ducked down in the center seat and I visualized the blades of the Osprey just coming straight through and taking us out. It was that close. And we ended up descending, you know, 110 degrees roll, I think the guys got to, and pulled down. We were only at 150 feet.
Gosh.
So yeah, ended up, you know, almost upside down and then recovered and climbed away. And again, one of the things in the original Puma that we were flying at the time, the Puma 1, is that the engines don't respond very quickly. That was one of the reasons there were a lot of accidents in the Puma, aside from what we were trying to do with the aeroplane. But yeah, and we just got away with it. That's the closest I've come, I think, that I can think of. And it was deeply, deeply unpleasant. In fact, one of the guys who was on the aircraft never flew again. He was just too, it shook him so much that that he just couldn't get back in the seat, Mav. And air traffic said they hit the crash alarm because they obviously they knew where the Ospreys were going. They knew where we were. And the air traffickers who was controlling just said, I looked out when I realized what was going on. The radar contacts merged. I saw you guys, just some of the lights, because we run fairly dark in those situations anyway. He's like, I just knew what I was looking for, and I could see you guys roll just out the way and then just miss the ground. And he was like, I just expected to see a fireball. And yeah, so horrible, if I'm honest. But, you crack on, right? We went and refueled. We got a job to do, went and grabbed the guys. And then afterwards we went for a green beans Moac, a mother of all coffees. And you chat about it and work out not to let it happen again, right? So
yes. Altitude's your friend, isn't it, when you're a pilot?
Yeah.
If you've got plenty of altitude, you've got time to put things right and time to just sort of chill a bit and work out what's gone. It's like when you get the checklist out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, people listening, anything that goes wrong in an aircraft, believe it or not, you don't just start pushing buttons and, trying to be James Bond. You first of all go to your checklist and you get it out and you calmly lift the cover and you say, right, look down the index for the problem that you're having, go to that chapter, and then it lists what you need to do in this order to put wrong the problem that you've got. So it could be something like you're coming into your engine's out and you're coming into water, and you'll get down the bottom of the page and it'll say, open your door, shove your foot in the door to stop it being forced closed when you hit the water. It doesn't actually say get out the plane, because I think by that stage you'll be underwater. But it really is, it's really impressive, Matt, that level of, when you watch the Chesney Sullenberger, if that was his name, when he lands on the airliner on the Hudson, and he's just so calm, going through the checks.
Yeah.
Turns to his co-pilot. Any ideas? Like, right, no panic whatsoever. I think they missed one thing, which is they forgot to put the plugs down in the airplane to make it waterproof. But
again, I think that comes back down to that fear thing that you brought up at the very beginning, where we practice for those things so much and the whole point and the reason we do that, and the reason, particularly in the military side of things, whenever we used to go out and fly, there would never be a routine flight, particularly when I was instructing, right? Your job was to make sure that the maximum training value came out of every trip. And, if someone was just like, oh, we're just going to fly from here to there, it's 30 minutes away, we're going at medium level, there's always an opportunity to learn something or to teach something, or to all of you, gain some experience from it. So you would practice an emergency because you could, so that when it happened for real, and they did happen fairly regularly, you're not afraid of it. It's just another procedure, and you tackle it exactly the same as you would if you were practicing. And one of the big things is that golden 7 seconds, I always used to think of it as, and still do, I suppose. It's like, don't do anything for the first 7 seconds. There's certain things, particularly in a helicopter, you have to do if certain things go wrong before that. But once you've done what you need to keep yourself in the air and make sure everything's okay and it's not catastrophic, it's like, right, start your watch, wait for 7 seconds, and then start going through everything, And in that time, you can get your checklist out. You can start talking to people. You might get a radio call out to air traffic to tell them something's going on. But it's really, really important that you don't, like you say, go rushing into flicking everything and turning the switches, because you might make it worse. And lots of people have been killed from shutting the wrong engine down, get an engine fire, the handle lights up, and someone identifies and pulls the other engine. And you think, how can that happen? But it does. It happens, quite disappointingly regularly, I suppose. So
there's so much going on when you're flying. And the problem is with it, or the issue is that the more au fait you get with all the systems, with the radio procedure, with your observation, your navigation, the whole shebang, the temptation must be to get complacent, and I fell foul of that. And it's the other way round. The more familiar you get with procedure, the less you have to fight not to get complacent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a way it's more difficult to do that in the kind of multi-crew aircraft that I flew in the military. So when there's more than kind of one pilot, or you're working with another pilot or navigator and a crewman or crewwoman down the back, it's a little bit more difficult to become complacent, because you've always got somebody else there who will have a different experience level, will think about things slightly differently. So you're always checking each other and communicating. But certainly I know, having done quite a bit of single pilot stuff, you have to really keep a check on yourself. There's a great book actually called The Killing Zone, which is about that kind of 100 to about 500 hours, or 1,000 hours, I think is where it now sits. But the first 500 hours of a pilot's flying career are generally the most dangerous, because you get your license, or you get your wings, and that takes you 150-ish hours, let's say, to go on the commercial side. And then you think you're right, and you do everything properly for the first year, but then you slip into this, I know what I'm doing now. I've not had an incident. I've not had an engine failure. I've not had a hydraulic leak for the whole time I've been flying. You start to kind of think, I can roll up a fat one and don't have to worry about it now. And that is when people get really dangerous. And then, of course, you have a couple of incidents, and that then sharpens you back up, and then you go out of the other side of the killing zone, because your experience now means that you don't fall into that trap of complacency, is the kind of idea behind it. But yeah, it is a real issue. And I think, you can, I think operators had a similar thing, right? The guys on the ground, once you get so used to doing things, and again, like weaponeering, it becomes normal. And it's totally not a normal thing, right? To carry weapons around with you and just have access to them and use them as a tool in your day job isn't a normal thing, really. But it becomes normal.
Yeah.
And, that then leads to a bit of complacency, I think. So until something happens, and then everyone tightens up again. So.
Yeah, there's a couple of examples I can give you from Northern Ireland. I was talking to Chris Dangerfield on his channel about this, or he was on my channel and we were talking about it. And you do all this training before going to the Northern Ireland conflict, and you get really good at it, as you do in any sort of beat up. And then when you get out there, it's like nothing happens. Right? Yeah. You're expecting this guy to get shot and this thing to go bang and this, and other than sort of people who keep throwing bricks at you, which does happen a lot. Yeah. There's nothing really kind of life-threatening, and the temptation is to think, they've overtrained us. They've trained us for a scenario that might take place, but it's kind of unlikely. And no, it's the other way around. It's just that it hasn't happened to you yet.
Yes.
So after about a week on patrol, you're looking at the guy next to you going, this feel right to you? Like, this is all that training we did, and we've got these essentially machine guns in our hands, and nothing's going. Then when it goes bang, whoa.
Yeah, when it all kicks off.
And you just have to take it as a lesson in not getting complacent.
Yeah.
The same when I was flying. I flew out to this airport that I mentioned, Okeechobee, and it's right out in the sticks, and it was a great place to go and practice your landings as a solo pilot. So for our friends at home again, so I'm flying solo, which you can do after about 12 hours if you show that you've got the aptitude for it, and then you're learning on your own, practicing on your own to take your pilot's license test. And I flew out in that period to Okeechobee, and I landed on this runway, and then I took off. There's no air traffic control at that airport. It's just everything's done between you and other pilots. And as such, I let my radio procedure lapse, and I just took off again. I mean, there's nobody there, right? This is the way your mind's thinking. and then I flew another circuit, and then I came in. I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to land the opposite way to taking off, just so I can get more practice in, right? And as I landed, and I was again just going to spin the plane round at the end of the runway and take off again, and this voice came over the radio. I can't remember what my call sign was, but it was like, 30 Bravo, do you intend to take off in that direction again? Oh my God, in that moment, you just feel like the biggest prat.
Yeah.
And I waffled something about, yeah, I think the wind has changed direction over. And it wasn't. It was just that, oh my God. You imagine if I'd taken off as someone was coming into land, it doesn't bear thinking about.
It really doesn't, eh?
So how did you leave school with many qualifications, Matt, to join the RAF?
No, well, it was a bit of a strange one. So I applied to go into the Air Force on a sixth form scholarship. They just opened up pilot entry to non-graduates, so you had to have a degree to go into the Air Force as a pilot for a long time. In fact, I think it was more to go in as an officer rather than to go through the pilot stream. It was just, if you want to be an officer, then you've got to have a degree, and I had to become an officer to fly because they're all commissioned pilots. So, and I grew up on a council estate in Stoke-on-Trent, right? So I didn't speak, when I was 16, I didn't speak how I do now. And I've got a bit of a northern accent still now, but this is a neutral accent. Like, I live in Stoke-on-Trent again now with my family, and everyone thinks I'm really posh. And it's like, nah, I am not. I'm from the estate round the corner kind of thing. And people are quite surprised when they hear that, when they live round here, And so I applied and got rejected. I got all the way through the selection process at Cranwell and got, right to the end, and it was brilliant. I think there was only 6 of us who got through to the end, and there were 5 spaces, and I thought I'd done quite well. And I got a letter through 2 months later. It was like, really sorry, you were really good, but you spoke with too colloquial an accent and you were difficult to understand. And it's just like, brilliant, thanks.
That sounds like double speak, if ever there was.
Big time, yeah, that's it, right?
We don't like your type in the mess.
Yeah, and I think there was an element of that, right? There were all the, wing commanders that were from the home counties, and I don't think they come across many people from council estates in Stoke applying to be pilots. I remember going to the careers office and they laughed at me when I said I would like to be a pilot. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, wouldn't we all, And it's like, brilliant, thanks. And again, I'm one of those kinds of people that sparks that fire in me to be like, do you know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to do this because I want it to, and no one can tell me I can't. Like, that's up to me to fail rather than me to, let you win kind of thing. So, yeah, I went to normal school here. Got all right GCSEs. I think 9 or whatever it was. Nothing special. Pretty much flunked my A levels. I got 3 A levels, but like C's and a B or something. I hated school, to be honest. I hated it. It bored me, and all I wanted to do was fly, which is ironic because you need reasonable grades to go and fly, right? I was never going to go to uni. That wasn't something that we could either afford or that interested me. And that was it. I just wanted to fly. So yeah, I got rejected from that. I was like, right, okay, so how do I get in then? And one of the things I said was go and get elocution lessons. I'm like, I'm not getting elocution lessons, steady on. And I was like, right, okay, so I did my A-levels. I worked a job, set up a business selling computers, weirdly, when I was at home, building and selling computers when they were, everyone was buying home PCs. So it was quite good, actually. And I saved enough money to pay to go out to Florida and do my pilot's license. So I finished my last A-level.
What were the processors back then? Was it 386?
486.
486.
DX66. Whoa.
I used to sell that when I was in Hong Kong. I used to sell it. I didn't actually sell a single component, but I worked in this company and we supplied all the companies worldwide that were making PCs at the time. And I remember it was a 286, 386, 48. Now the processors are just probably 1,000 times.
It's insane, isn't it? Yeah, literally 1,000 times or whatever. Yeah, it's madness. But no, the one that made the most money, weirdly, was well, there's two things. It was upgrading people's RAM from 4 megabytes to 8 megabytes, double your RAM. And yeah, I used to buy the 4 megabyte sticks of RAM for like 43 quid, but I'd charge £100 to put it in the computer. And it was really bad in a way, because I mean, literally, you know, you take the case off at the time, you took the case off, clip it in, put the case back on, done. But they come and drop their computer off at my mum and dad's house, because that's where I was doing it from, in their living room. All these computers everywhere. It was incredible. They hated it, but it was earning some money for me. So yeah, and you take the computer, right, come back at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and you'd literally do it, put it back, and put a sticker on, say it was theirs, and they'd come back and think you spent all day working on it. And yeah, that was good. And the other one was modems. When the internet first came out. And yeah, it was buying the kind of dial-up modems, whatever it was, 25.6K modems. And yeah, we were buying those, put them in, set it up, load people onto, what was it called? Finetra or something, I think, was the provider. And
you want to know a trade secret? I don't know if you know this, but we used to sell something called remarks.
Okay.
And what that was a Pentium processor, and they would literally grind the writing off on a milling machine, and so a 286 would then be reprinted with a 386.
No.
Right? And then, or a 386 would be 486. So basically, the resellers in Hong Kong are conning you.
Wow.
And what they would do when people would phone up to order, they had the option of buying the genuine item or ordering a remark, as we called it. And what they would do with the remark is you could adjust the I can't remember the name, the jumpers inside on the motherboard, and reprogram the CMOS or whatever it is, so it came up as a 486 when it wasn't. And
no way.
I used to just think, I wonder how many people worldwide now are going, yeah, I've got a Pentium 486. It's like, no, you haven't.
Not so much. No way.
So basically, your whole career has been getting to this point where you now have a good accent for YouTube.
Yeah, apparently so. That's exactly it. Yeah. It was weird, isn't it? I mean, I finished my levels, went out to Florida for a month and did my pilot's license, and then kind of stayed out there and did loads of flying. Got asked to go and fly as a second officer on a King Air and stuff like that. And it was ace. Like, I was 18, never left Stoke-on-Trent before, and effectively, and like, I'm this 18-year-old kid living out in Florida. First time away from home. It was absolutely epic. And during that time, applied to the Air Force. I think they were like, okay, well, he's not really a training risk now, because he's proved he can, do something outside of the box, and went and did it. And I joined the Air Force at 19 and lost my accent within a couple of years, got disowned by everyone at home, and landed, I guess, where I am now with the YouTube accent.
Yes, and all the bloody technology you need for YouTube, and yes.
Yeah, cool.
What when you went out to Florida, was that to do your private, or did you do your commercial?
Yeah, so I went out to do my private and actually stayed there and did my FAA commercial at the time. So I got asked, effectively, the guy who owned the flying school had a private charter company as well. And I think saw that I picked it up fairly quickly.
Wow.
And had the aptitude to do it, and said, look, if you want to stay. And I wasn't sure whether it was a bit of a con at the time, because I was like, is he conning me to try and get another, I think it was only like $3,500 to go and do my PPL there. And it was like, well, if you give us 10, then we can do your CPL. And I'm like, I'm not sure, probably need to speak to my parents about this. Like, that's all the money I've made in the last 3 years of doing these computers, like, will be gone. And they were just like, just do it. You're there. You can see that the guys are actually flying these airplanes that is telling you you're going to fly, like, and you get your license at the end of the day. So yeah, stayed out there and did that.
Yeah, I got quite caught up, as you do when you do such a course. I got quite caught up with it, and I was meeting a lot of commercial pilots. So I was getting to go and sit in Jetstream, were they called Jetstream?
Could have been, yeah, Jetstreams.
These private jets at the Hollywood
Gulfstreams and stuff, yeah.
You know, I'm sitting in the cockpit pushing. He's going, yeah, push whatever you want. Okay, right. What does this do? Right. And it's very tempting to go the commercial route, but for me, it would have meant remortgaging my house.
Yeah.
The deciding factor was really, do I want to be a taxi driver in the sky? Which is no disrespect to pilots. If that's what you love, and I've met pilots that they just love the systems approach, sitting there, you know, managing a computer basically. They love the technical aspect of flying. But for me, I thought there's so much I want to do in the world. If I'm sat in a cockpit for 8 hours flying to New York, that's just 8 hours I'm never going to get back.
Yeah.
Especially if it's at night and it's dark.
Yes.
Waiting for the steward or stewardess to bring you your coffee. Yeah,
That's it. And I don't know whether I could have gone like fully commercial. I mean, that was amazing, right? At 18, I got, 500 hours flying in my first year, whilst applying to the Air Force. And to be honest, the Air Force was the only thing I was ever going to do. Like, that was it. My mind was set. This is what I'm going to do. But at the same time, it was like, well, I've got a pretty cool fallback actually, because I could come back out to Florida if it doesn't work out and fly over here doing the, shuttle runs on these kind of small charter aircraft. And that, that would have been a fairly cool career. And at the time, I mean, this is 2000-ish, and at the time, actually, the wages were pretty good for someone who would have been 18 to effectively put the wheels up and down, and greet the passengers as they come on the aeroplane. Like, I'd take whatever it was, 45 grand a year at the time to do that. It's like, I'll put the wheels up and down for that. I'm sure it would have become boring very quickly, eventually. But yeah, and obviously the industry is totally different now. The commercial flying industry is totally different than it was. I mean, obviously than it was 6 months ago, right? But than it was 10 or 15 years ago, where it was a reasonable lifestyle and you got paid quite well with a good pension.
They're hammered now, mate, aren't they?
Unbelievable.
Flying hours, they're up there pushing the limits of safety. The pay must have come right down. And then there's no, well, especially in the current climate, there's no guarantee of a long-term flying career out of it.
No.
Yeah.
And I heard reports of some companies that are actually charging people who've just qualified and got their license. Bear in mind, these people have it's 100 grand if you want to do a full integrated course. And that is, I mean, that leads me on to the place I am now in my life, right? That if you want to, we'll talk about that in a bit. But it's 100 grand to get your license. And then there are certain airlines that are charging people to sit in the co-pilot seat so that they can get experience in a jet, in a co. And you think, how is this? How have we come to this?
Yeah, I blame frickin' Ryanair.
Well, I didn't want to name the name, but yeah, that's one of the ones who are, by the sounds of it, effectively charging people to sit in the seat. And you think, blimey heck, it's not right, is it?
No. Won't be long before Ryanair are charging you to have what do you call it, a porthole?
Yeah.
A window.
The window seat, or use the toilet or something.
Extra.
Yeah.
You want to see out with a sticker and just stick it on the on the fuselage.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So I'm conscious of our time here, Matt, and shall we talk about your deployment experiences then?
Yeah.
Because that's I mean, have you read Chicken Hawk?
I have, yeah.
What a book, eh?
Yeah.
If you ever want to end up flying helicopters, folks, just read Chicken Hawk. Was it Richard Mason?
Yeah.
About his flying Hueys in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Ended up in prison, actually, I think he began selling drugs after his Vietnam experience. I think there's a whole load of PTSD and stuff chucked into that, as not surprisingly, as you probably experience flying into hot LZs all the time. But my friend said, he handed me that book, he said, Chris, and he was trying to become a helicopter pilot in the Marines.
Right.
He said, if you want to know how to fly helicopters, read the first 5 pages of that book.
Yeah.
And it's talking about this, is it cyclic, they call it?
That's it, yeah.
These controls and stuff. And yes, that was, do you ever think about those guys in Vietnam, the Huey pilots?
Yeah, actually, the kind of reading things like Chicken Hawk was part of our flying training, weirdly, when we joined the Defence Helicopter Flying School over at Shawbury. You know, you start your flying training like, right, this is the recommended reading, and Chicken Hawk was one of them, weirdly, because, and it's a strange thing, and you know, when you go through the military training, the military training machine is effectively a sausage factory, isn't it? You know, you put people in one end who have a certain aptitude and a potential to do something, and then if they make it all the way through, they come out of the other end and they're generally, you know, what the product is. And one of the things I think, particularly in the rotary world, and it's funny, right, because the Air Force get a lot of stick from the other forces because we all live in hotels and all this sort of stuff. And actually, that's true if you're in the Air Force, but helicopters in the Air Force are owned by Land Command. So actually, you are an extension of the Land Army. And to that end, like I don't ever remember staying in a hotel really when I was flying helicopters. We were in the tents, or you know, we were wherever the people we were supporting were, living with them and working with them, because that's the only way that you could do the job and be as effective as you needed to be, was to live it with them, you know. And it was really interesting because of that. You know, so sorry, dude, I kind of went off track there.
No, it's brilliant.
Questioning, and
it's brilliant. It's all the stuff we want to hear. But I think the RAF must have to say a massive thank you to the RAF regiment, isn't it? Because ever since that 5 Mile of Death video came out, they've just taken so much shit. It's taken the heat off everybody else that used to get all the shit. So
yeah, that's it.
Yes, for anyone watching, just Google RAF Regiment 5 Mile of Death, and it's it's good. Some Liverpudlian chap who's, I hope he's able to laugh at it. You'll see what I mean, folks, if you watch it. So as far as combat deployments, you mentioned Iraq. Were you in Afghanistan? I can't think of the timings.
Yeah, so I was on the Puma 1 and went out to Iraq on the front lines, a couple of tours out in Iraq. And the way it worked with the job that we were doing out there, we generally deployed with a certain counterterrorism or special forces unit, and we would stay with the same squadron, so the same group of pilots. So our flight on the squadron I was on in the Air Force, we're not kind of aligned with one of the squadrons on the special forces side of things, but we generally worked with them whenever we went away. Our timing routines were generally very similar. So that was what we did. So I did a couple of tours out there, and some really interesting flying, some really interesting work that we did out there. And as these things are, because of the nature of the assets that we were flying and the people that we were working with, there was, and it wasn't mission creep in our instance. We knew we were going out there to be an organic asset generally, and to go out and do whatever was required. And not everyone was able to go out and do that. You know, we had certain crews that did certain things, and there were crews that did the green work, so the non-organic stuff, where it'd be going and we know where they're going to go and they've got a task sheet for the day and that's it. And then there were other crews that did the organic work, which, required a little bit of a different skill set, if that makes sense. And as part of that, operated in America doing counterterrorism stuff, in the kind of homeland security stuff, again, because of the people that we worked with. There was out in Norway as well. Then we piggybacked on an exercise out in Kenya a number of times to go and do things in places in and around Kenya. And again, right, and you'll probably have come across this. It's one of those things that you end up, I think, in certain places within the military, being exposed to things which aren't necessarily, like, they don't make the media. Like, everyone thinks, oh, we were in Afghanistan, we were in Iraq, and we were, but there's also a lot of other things going on around the world that see you in different places. And I think because of the aircraft that I flew primarily, it meant that we had that capability that was utilized actually quite often to go to other places which weren't in the news. So I never went to Afghanistan in the Puma, but I may have been in and around that region at some point doing certain things. And I was off the Puma 1 before the Puma 2 went to Afghanistan. I had my accident that ended my Air Force flying career before the Puma 2 went out to Afghanistan. But the guys and girls are out there doing a lot of work now, still there doing the job. So
are you able to speak about that, your accident?
Yeah, I can do. So I did my kind of operational tours on the Puma 1, became an instructor at 26, so the youngest helicopter instructor in the Air Force at the time. And again, I think it's just because I was so hungry for it, right? I worked so hard to prove to people that I wasn't this thick kid from Stoke, and that I could do things that other people had been told wasn't possible. And yeah, I became an instructor, taught on the Griffin at RAF Shawbury for a year. Then I got called back to the Puma Force. I was meant to have 3 years at Shawbury teaching, and I got called back to the Puma Force to help bring in the Puma 2, the brand new Puma. And yeah, introduced that. So I was deputy OC training for the Puma Force. So helped to kind of create all of the training syllabus for it, introduce the new pilots and instructors into the Puma 2, got the aircraft to what we call IOC, so initial operational capability, so that we were able to then deploy. But I'd also, at the same time, been given an opportunity to go over to the fast jet stream, which is what I'd always wanted. I was kind of I think a lot of people fall foul of this in the military. I was a victim of timing, in so much as when I went through my flying training, there was no fast jet slots at all for about 18 months. So all of us went onto helicopters or multi-engine aircraft.
Have you met Tim Davies?
I haven't, but I know of him from YouTube and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, you guys should hook up, because you'd get on like a house on fire.
Yeah, I do watch his videos and his rants and stuff, and I'm like, dude, we need to have a beer and have these rants together. Like, oh my God, yeah, because I think, we think very similarly. He obviously was very much at the pointy end down the fast jet route, and I was at the spade end, I suppose. Living in tents doing probably the equivalent thing, but in the rotary side of things. So
yeah, shout out to Tim, very, very lovely man.
He is.
Pleasure. I love watching him. It's been a pleasure chatting and working with him.
Yeah,
did you fly jets then at all?
I've had experience in them, flown in Tornado and things like that, but only really as an addition to, just because I got the opportunity to go and do it, and befriended those people. I held on 9 Squadron over at RAF Marham, which was a GR4 squadron at the time, so did quite a bit of flying with them. But never actually kind of as an official fast jet pilot. That was where I was off to go. We'd already got the quarter up at Linton-on-Ouse, and we were 6 weeks away. I was doing the handover, ironically, from Puma 2 to say, right, see you, Puma Force. I'm off to go and do the fast jet thing. And that's when I had my accident. And nothing exciting. Like, I've had a few exciting things that could have resulted in a fairly terminal outcome. And probably the most mundane incident you could imagine, and it's a career ender. And we were night flying. I had the night flying goggles on, and a testing system on top, because we were testing the brand new helmet mounted sight system for the Puma 2, which was a new thing, and it was all the calibration to work out how it all worked and that kind of thing. And we hit really heavy turbulence. It's funny you talking about turbulence before. We hit really heavy turbulence, and my seat basically broke off its mounts on the floor, and fell forwards, and it went with such force that I broke 2 vertebrae in my neck, and that was it. Game over. Lucky to be able to walk again, but I mean that kind of thing was touch and go, whether I'd be up and running and things like that again properly, for a long time. And it was a really unpleasant 18 months between that accident and being unceremoniously dumped out of the military.
You for all your training and your dedication and commitment, you do realize you're just a number when you leave, don't you?
Yeah, it was horrible, to be honest, and I'm not going to lie, I'm quite bitter about it to this day.
Well, these are the things we need to be talking about in society, because we're in a veteran suicide epidemic.
Yeah.
And we need to be asking, obviously there's many different factors in a suicide, or indeed in PTSD, but one of them has got to be the kind of unceremonious dumping of you once you've left. You want to go back and knock on the door, and it's like, sorry son, you don't belong here anymore. And to some people, that's just a massive sense of sort of a loss of identity and a sense of rejection. I'm guessing. I felt it a bit myself at times.
Yeah, and I think particularly when, like, they're not lying, right, on these military adverts when they say it's more than just a job, because it's your life. Like, it is absolutely dominates and takes over every single second that you're awake and you're asleep. Not just because of the fact that, you've been turned into a tool to be used for a certain job generally, but on top of that, it's, everything is dictated at the whim of the politicians, and ultimately you're there to do what you're told, aren't you? And it's totally all consuming. And I think we need, as a society, to realize, and this is like America generally, right? My experience of operating and working and being in America, like, they really do seem to look after their veterans. Like, if they know, like, the number of times we would go out for meals when we were out there training, and you go to pay for the meal at the end of the night, and they're like, it's all sorted, sir. And you're like, what do you mean? No, we want to pay. And they're like, no, someone's paid it. I'm like, what? And it's like, yeah, some lady paid it. They heard that you were all here on, training to go out to Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever it may be, and they wanted to look after you, so they've paid it and paid the tip. And you think, oh my God, in the UK, I wouldn't even tell people that I was in the military, because you didn't know how they might react to it. And yeah, it's interesting. And, like, I was at the top of my game, had an accident, and I became the black sheep of the squadron. No one would speak to me. And yeah, we were, literally sent a letter to say, this is when your med board is, right, this is when you've got to get out of the house. And we got a 4-month-old kid. My wife was 6 months pregnant when I had my accident with our first child. And it was savage. It was absolutely brutal. Is what it is.
I'm quite happy about this podcast so far, because we haven't got political, and I think actually it's a refreshing change for me, because it's also, there's so much going on in the world, and has gone on in the world in the last 20 years since what happened in New York and Washington. It can taint the whole military experience thing. But the only point I wanted to make is we need to learn to respect injured servicemen and those suffering with mental health. not the ones that are serving. They're fine. They don't need your money. They don't need your cup of coffee. They don't need you to tip your hat. In fact, when I was in, if you did that to me, I would have I'd have cringed a bit. And I know I speak on behalf of pretty much everyone else. We weren't that much in our egos that we needed people to be opening doors for us and stuff. But it's mental health, and how many people are buying that cup of coffee for the serviceman on the one hand, and then they see a homeless person, it's fucking bum.
Yeah.
Right? And you got to remember, no, that homeless person is someone with a story as well.
Yeah.
Statistically, most likely to be a veteran. I think we've got 3,000 sleeping on our streets at the moment in the UK alone. Very, very skewed. And I said this to Tim, but a lot of this hero worship of people that are serving comes back to the fact that America need to send them to so many illegal wars. So they've tried to create this ethos or this aura around their servicemen that you're not allowed to criticize and it's nothing to do with the individual servicemen who just join up to serve their country, as we all did. I'm talking now about the system behind it, but enough said about that.
That's it. Sorry.
Yes.
Dragged you sideways.
Well, just yesterday afternoon, I'm trying to word an email to someone that says, Chris, I want to join, but then who am I working for? And it gets really hard. I don't want to steal, Matt, I don't want to steal anyone's opportunity to live the life that I've lived.
Yeah.
And it all comes out in the wash. I feel quite a well-balanced 50-year-old. I think I see more of life for what it is than most of my peers through just having one experience after the other. But on the other hand, at what point do you drop a reality pill in there for these young people who might have to go off and kill, who might have to come home injured or living with the consequence of their actions? And you need to know on whose behalf are you committing these actions. And let's talk about the weapons on the Puma. My memory of the Puma, and it's very loose, is that it was a similar kind of setup, like a smaller version of the Sea King. Or have I completely got that wrong?
Yeah, I suppose that's the that's the thing that it'd be likened to. I suppose inside it was probably more useful area than the Sea King, although the guys would argue differently depending which one you've flown. Right, it's always the best aeroplane in the world, but very similar to the Sea King. So the junglies, who I suppose from the marine side you would have worked with, we work closely with them and do, I guess, the equivalent but on land. Very similar. And the Puma 2 in particular is an absolute beast. Like it is, and this is going back quite a few years now in my mind, but you could hover the Puma 2 on one engine at what we call max all-up mass. So at its maximum weight, you could hover the aircraft on, pretty much hover it on one engine in the UK. And that is incredible, because it gives you the ability then to fill the aeroplane up to the maximum weight that it can fly at, which when I was on the fleet was 7.4 tons, and fly the balls off it, and it would still look after you if you looked after it, kind of thing. And in terms of weapons, I mean, it was all, for us it was self-defense. The weapons that we carried on the aircraft were effectively the people down the back that we were dispatching to do their job, right? Very potent weapons in themselves. It was self-defense, so machine gun in each door, flares of various types around the aircraft so that you could defeat any infrared, like heat-seeking missiles that would be fired at you, and then an infrared jammer on the back to try and stop some of those missiles coming out of the tube. if you like.
Did you get issued pistols, or am I thinking of Vietnam or something?
No. So yeah, so when we were flying, we were issued with pistols. Generally, it was the Browning 9mm was our personal protection weapon. That was when you're on the normal fleet. When you moved across, you'd have normal pistol and then the SA-80. And then in addition to that, when you did certain types of work with certain types of people, because the ammunition that some of the operators that we then worked with was different to the standard service issue ammunition, we would use different weapons. So we would use the Glock pistol. We'd be issued with the Glock, which was a really nice weapon, actually. Like, why everyone didn't get that, and they might well do now. I don't know. Things have moved on, right? And the the HK 74, which is effectively an AK-47, right? But short nosed and
is it Heckler and Koch?
Heckler and Koch.
I've been out of it for a while. I reckon if I crashed in enemy territory and I had a Glock or a SA, I'd probably trade it for a sandwich. I don't think I'd be about to start shooting anyone, because there's no one going to come and back you up.
No, that's it. Well, you always used to say as well with the Browning, like the Browning was about as much use. Like, the best thing you could do with a Browning was throw it at the enemy, and always save the last bullet, because it's funny, isn't it? But an old weapon system, I suppose, that probably was good when it was created, but probably not appropriate for what we were doing with it in the environments we were operating in. Which is, I think, one of the reasons we moved to the Glock and the HK that we did. Aside from the fact that the enemy who were in theatre, it meant that we could use their ammunition should we need to. So, which is a big component of weapon choice.
Is it easy navigating when you're on a mission and it's obviously dark?
Yeah. So, I mean, it has its challenges for sure. We were very lucky in a way that, so I'm talking Puma 1 now, right? So like Puma 1 was properly steam driven, like it was clock, map and compass. There was a GPS in there, but it wasn't always that great. Better than nothing. And you could put the target in there. And what we used to do, and it's the whole thing, like we talked about earlier with the practicing for emergencies all the time, like train hard, fight easy. So we would make it so that when we were training in the UK or training in different environments around the world, we would make it so that our pilots could get at night on goggles at 150 feet or lower in some cases to a target using a clock, a map and a compass. Because if everything goes wrong, as I had happened to me in Kenya one time, and it was horrendous because Kenya is pitch black at night where we were operating, and like when the generators switch off in people's huts and houses, that's it. You can't even see the horizon. And I'm so glad that we always used to teach clock, map, compass, because that's the only reason we got home and didn't bump into Mount Kenya one night. But yeah, it's certainly difficult, particularly when you're leading 5 aircraft. So you've got 4 other aircraft in formation behind you, particularly when people are trying to stop you getting to the place you're trying to get to, because they don't, they're not stupid. This is one of the big mistakes a lot of people make, right? Like they think that the enemy in some of these places that we're operating are not as clever as we are. And that's your first mistake. When you start thinking that, comes back to that complacency thing, like that's when stuff's going to go wrong. So they're as good at stopping you getting where you want to go as we are at trying to get there. Not quite, actually, because we would generally get there, right? So I guess we did win in a way. But it was a skill. It was something that we had to practice, and you went out every night and practiced for months and years before you went on a job. And and then we also had, in a lot of cases, when we were doing complex jobs, we were very much helped by the fact that the way that we operated meant that we had other ways of knowing where the target was. Because sometimes the target would be in a different place than it was when we took off. Sometimes the target would be moving. and there were ways that we could be shown where the target was whilst we were airborne from our aircraft based on the assets that we had above us that could see a much better picture than we could, if you see what I mean.
Yes, I do.
So,
it all sounds incredibly exciting. I'm just hesitant to delve too deeply, because I can imagine the passengers that you must have picked up and dropped off. And did anyone get back on the aircraft, having been all shot up?
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate part of that side of the world, I think, isn't it? That side of the job is that, unfortunately, there are people who succumb to injuries because of the very nature of what they're doing and what we're doing, you know. And we not regularly, I wouldn't say, but we have, you know, regularly had people come on who've received an injury of some sort. And I think a big part of what we used to do in the aircraft I flew was, you know, we were there to ultimately get those people to safety, or to the support that they needed if and when they needed it, and get them there bloody quickly as well. So, you know, it was all about saving the lives should we need to. And, you know, and I'm pleased and proud to say that we've done that a lot of times, you know, and and it's great to be part of that whole operation, right? Like, everything is there, it all is in place, and it all generally, because you planned it so well, works as it should.
Did you get hit by arms fire, you know, small arms or?
No. So we were, again, I suppose, fairly fortunate. You know, the way that we operated, when we operated, what we operated, meant generally that even when people had a go, we never got hit, basically. So yeah, and I think a lot of that is down to the tactics that we employed, and again, the training that we had, and the intelligence that we had, and that sort of stuff. Again, it's a much bigger picture than us just going and dropping some guys off in a back garden or fast roping onto a roof or something like that.
Yeah. So, Matt, let's come on then and talk about everything drones, because as I said earlier, it's just a whole fascinating area now, and it almost seems like everybody's buying one.
Yeah, every man and his dog, eh?
Yeah. So at what point did it become an issue with respect to air safety?
I think as soon as it tipped that line where drones became available in, you know, retail shops, like you can pop to an electronics store and buy a drone. I think as soon as it crossed that line, that's when it started to become a problem. For the longest time, I mean, for us, I flew model planes and helicopters as a kid. Model planes as a kid, helicopters later on, as I could afford to when I was in the military. I used to get bantered remorselessly by the guys and girls at work. You know, you go and teach people how to fly these helicopters in the week, and then at the weekend you go and fly model helicopters. You're weird, you are. I'm like, well, yeah, I am. I suppose we all are a bit, aren't we? And
you don't want to be normal. I've said that for nothing.
That's it, mate.
The way normal people live their lives, it's not.
It's not right.
There's not much fun.
No. So that was it. But the thing was, right, when you got a model plane or a model helicopter, like, it took you spent £1,000 to buy it. It took you 6 months to build it. You wouldn't take it out and fly it in your back garden because, 1, it was too big. 2, it was going to kill someone if it went wrong. And 3, you didn't want to trash what you'd spent 6 months trying to build, and was going to cost a fortune if you crashed it. So you went to a club, you learned how to fly properly, and they then taught you the rules. And, you know, I mean, there weren't really any rules, but they taught you the club rules. They taught you how to do it safely, what to watch out for. And that was it. You flew safely. When it then became like GPS is in the drones now, so you can take your hands off and they hover, and they became, you know, £1,000 or less. And like I say, you can buy them from the shop up the road, get them on Amazon. All of a sudden you're into a place where we saw an explosion of people flying them. And yeah, it's quite concerning from a drone operator's point of view, but also from a full-size flying point of view, because like I had a bird strike in Iraq, and at night on goggles at low level, and it effectively took our Puma, fully armored, fully tooled up with people down the back. It effectively took us out of the sky. It came in so hard through the aeroplane that it knocked me unconscious. It broke my body armor. It broke my ribs. We were fortunately, co-pilot managed to land the aeroplane at a very nearby field hospital.
Bloody hell. How did you recover from that?
Well, I mean, again, I suppose this is one of the reasons everyone who's at the front end is well trained, because if you get shot or something happens like that with the bird strike, the other person can then hopefully carry on flying the aeroplane. And as it happened, the very experienced co-pilot with me at the time managed to land us at a nearby field hospital and get out of the aeroplane and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and this is why I think it's all well and good thinking, oh, these things are toys. And I don't want to catastrophize, because that's not the right thing to do, right? We can use these safely and coexist, but people need to understand what it is that they're doing, right? And how to do it safely.
Yes, because we were talking about drones, weren't we?
Yes.
But bird strike in a Puma, my God, that's every pilot's, well, one of the worst nightmares, isn't it?
Yeah.
Worst fears, sorry, is the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I guess so. Aside from, being shot or something like that, it's, fairly, it was a shock, that's for sure.
Yeah. Gosh. Did it take you long to get better?
Not at all, no. There's no messing around, right? We were in Iraq doing the job, so, the engineers, fixed the aeroplane within 24 hours. I was back up in the co-pilot seat the next day on a pretty cool cocktail, actually, I have to say. The stuff the Americans gave us at the field hospital kind of, certainly made you feel like you could go and fly. Anyway, that's for sure.
Gosh.
It's like sit in that seat and be quiet and don't say anything. So.
Yeah, I was reading about a pilot. I can't remember. It was a private pilot, not a private pilot, but ran a private company ferrying people to and fro in America somewhere, or Alaska, one of these sort of bush pilots, I think they call them.
Yeah.
He was a former Vietnam Huey pilot. And the guy that was writing the book that I was reading said the guy's like flying along smoking a joint. And in fact, he said he chain smoked marijuana. So,
jeez.
I guess you get to a point where you get kind of a bit immune to the certain effects of it, and you focus in on the beneficial ones. But.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go and test the theory, to be honest, fly with him, but each to their own.
Oh, imagine if you got up to altitude and you just started spinning out, it would be.
Oh my God. Yeah, savage.
Just out of interest, did your mobile phones work when you were flying? Or was this before the sort of days?
So, yeah, well, if I'm honest, I don't know, because we never took mobile comms into theatre with us. So, again, I think because of the nature of what we were doing and where we were based, because we weren't back in the hotels in Cyprus, going into and then flying into theatre, we were on the ground in theatre. There was no mobile comms apart from the people who needed them, and they were secure phones. So never tried it, to be honest.
What about in the UK?
In the UK, you could get a mobile signal in most places up to a certain height. If you're below about 3,000 to 5,000 feet, certainly as it was at the time, you could get a signal. But again, to be honest, a lot of the times when we were flying the aircraft, even in the UK, you're flying with what's called the DAS, the Defensive Aid Suite, kind of switched on to some certain level, and your mobile would either be jammed or interfere with that anyway. So you generally switch them off when you're flying. There's actually some quite sensitive equipment on some of the aircraft that we fly, even in the training roles. So never really tested it. I mean, flying a Cessna around, it seems to be, if you have a radio problem, get your mobile phone out and call air traffic control. And I've done that once in the Puma back in the day in Northern Ireland when we were stuck somewhere in the hills, and I got a mobile phone signal, but we couldn't get a radio signal back to Aldergrove. And we wanted to speak to air traffic to say, look, we're basically in cloud on the top of this hill. We want an instrument recovery. Couldn't get them on the radio. I was like, well, I'll give my mobile phone a go. Called air traffic control, shouted down the thing, and they were like, yeah, squawk this, call us on this frequency and go on this heading and we'll pick you up and it's no problem. And it all does work. So yeah, have a radio problem, get your phone out, I guess. That's the thing. I tell you what though, like I can't drive from Stoke to Birmingham on the M6 without my mobile signal dropping out at some point in the car on the way. Like when we were operating out in Kenya was one place where we did have mobile phones in the aircraft, and we had we'd be using a local mobile phone because the distances we were going were so great you couldn't speak back to base. And we would text to say we just lifted, and text to say we were ETA, and everywhere in Kenya, where regardless of how remote we were, we had full 3G signal all the time. It was incredible. Never known anything like it.
Wow.
So it was that was a viable means of comms back to the base. When we're out there.
Can you give us some examples, Matt, of what accidents have been caused by drones?
Yeah, well, they've actually, fortunately, so far, not been those many that have been confirmed as drones. There's one Black Hawk out in America that we know hit a DJI Phantom, so like a DJI quadcopter, the traditional kind of drone that everyone thinks of when they think small drone. I think it hit the rotors and did very little damage to the aircraft, bit of vibration, they managed to land it. But if I'm honest, outside of that, there's very few incidents that have been confirmed as having been drone strikes, which again, I suppose leads to this whole, is it that much of a problem? Is the sky big enough that we're not going to bump into each other? But inevitably at some point we will, and it'll be...
Well, yeah, I mean, a novice drone flyer or drone pilot could naively think, oh, do you know what? I'm going to fly my drone over Heathrow Airport. See what's going. Do you know what I mean? You don't know, do you? No. I mean, I bet there's countless other examples of what would be inappropriate use. How is it? Because I've been sunbathing in the garden in the summer, and a drone's come over, and I thought, gosh, that,
it's what happens when you get YouTube famous, mate. They're all coming looking for the shot.
Yeah, I wish it was to do with my YouTube thing. I think it's more like this guy's just flying it around the neighborhood and it happened to go over our garden. But I was thinking that could really upset some people, couldn't it?
Yeah. So actually you're not allowed to. The rules at the moment mean that you're not allowed to fly in built-up areas unless you've got a very special permission from the CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority. So, and then if you've got that, you wouldn't generally be flying over, people's houses and things like that you're not allowed to, because that you're not supposed to do that without talking to them. So yeah, at the moment, that is effectively illegal. You can't do it. There are, though, changes coming to the law. They were meant to come in July of 2020, but with all the pandemic, that date's been slipped back now to the 31st of December 2020. I personally expect that that's going to roll on another 3 to 6 months, is my gut feeling. So I think, mid-21 probably is a realistic time frame. However, whenever those come in, it means that people flying small drones, so like toy drones, in certain circumstances, you'd be able to fly it in your back garden. You'd be able to fly it. And do I agree with it or not? I don't know. It's one of those, for me, then it becomes a privacy issue and a security issue. Because you can see a lot from popping a good camera up in the air above a tree line and, you know, people could see exactly what we've got in the back garden. You know, they can, I don't know. It's concerning, but at the same time, I think it needs to happen because the technology is safe enough. And actually, you know, checking gutters, checking roofs, checking chimneys. Do we really need to be sending people up ladders now to potentially have an accident when you could just fire your drone up and have a quick
Wow.
look, you know? And that, so they're changing the rules to try and enable that technology, which is cool, right? Times move on.
Yes.
Like cars, you had to have a guy with a red flag, right, walking in front of you when you had a car at first, and we don't do that now. So yeah, but then the flip side is when you're trying to, you know, tan the abs, it's Dave down the road can come and have a look if he wants.
It's my marijuana plantation I'm more bothered about.
There you go. Yeah, and I do wonder, you know, whether there's a bit of that, that the police are like, yeah, we're happy because we know that people are going to spot stuff and potentially tell us, right?
Yes. And so your company, what sort of services do you provide? I can see you obviously provide a lot of guidance. Do you teach people how to fly drones or?
Yeah, so the kind of drone training side of things, we saw that there was a problem coming 6 years ago because the regulations just came in. There were a couple of drone training schools that popped up that did if I'm honest, a really bad job of teaching, and they've since disappeared. So kind of probably got that right. And we said, right, we need to have someone who understands about the drone and remote control side of things and the aviation side of things with a bit of credibility, actually teaching properly, not just the rules and regulations, because they're boring, right? Like who wants to know those? It's about how to fly your drone properly, how to fly your drone safely. And ultimately, like if we all stick to doing that, we'll be able to enjoy the technology for forever. But if the wrong person has their house flown over, you know, and says, hang on a minute, that's not right. Right, let's shut this down. Then none of us are going to be able to fly. So we're the biggest commercial drone training school in the world. We've trained now more than 3,000 commercial pilots in the drone space. I mean, there's new courses coming out all the time. And if you want your kind of CAA certification, if you want to get the qualifications you need to be able to fly legally in the UK, we're the biggest, highest rated school that does that. And it was about, you know, taking my experience and now the experience of the team. We've got a very, very talented team now, you know, who work out the kind of learning journey for people of all different backgrounds, because it's not like the military where you get to profile people before they come in and work out their aptitude and send them off a certain stream. Like we get all sorts of people coming through from, you know, younger children, very old people, it's fair to say, you know, who are interested, you know, chartered surveyors, building contractors, cameramen and women, you know, a whole total kind of broad spectrum. It's amazing. But the learning journey they all go on is slightly different. So we've had to, work out how to get the information across that these people need in the most effective way. Particularly with COVID, it's been an interesting time for us to try and do that. But yeah, I think, you know, the team are smashing it out of the park and everyone really enjoys the training, and hopefully it's keeping the industry safe, right? Like the longer we can make it that there isn't an accident or an incident, the longer we're all going to be able to explore what the technology can do and reap the benefits of it. So that's what it's all about.
And the longer you're going to not be allowed to fly over my house.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. You have to put a little zone over it and say, no one can fly here.
Well, it's interesting we're having this conversation because as a YouTuber, it's obviously something I've got to start considering now. Because I quite like this whole making videos thing. I haven't done a huge amount of it of any kind of, you know, I haven't got any sort of prowess there is what I'm trying to say. But
yeah,
I do like the idea. I mean, I went out the other day camping in wild camping and throwing myself in the river and stuff and had a fire and the natural progression of filming in that sort of 2-dimension, if we call it that, is to take the third one and put something up in the sky. And so what's the sort of cheapest drone you could buy that would handle a GoPro?
Oh, crikey. Well, to be honest, most of them now have moved away from putting other cameras on. And that's the way, if you want something that you can put a camera on, even like a GoPro now, you're actually perversely talking about probably quite a lot of money. You can get one that's got the equivalent to a GoPro, and it will grade in as if it's the same camera for about 350 quid now.
Wow.
Something like a DJI Mavic Mini. Yeah, phenomenal bits of kit, like, amazing machines, really, the technology that's packed into something that's this big.
Would you recommend that one? I'm just writing that name down.
Yes, the Mavic Mini is it's pretty difficult to beat in terms of like the price point and what it can do. And certainly if it's something that you just want to carry in a bag with you, put it in its little box or whatever, carry it with you, fly around for 10 minutes or 3 minutes around your campsite to get a couple of nice shots as sun goes down or something, like, you can't go wrong with it. It's going to be difficult to beat. And then, stepping up to something like the DJI Mavic 2 Pro would be the next one up. You're talking about 1,500 quid for something like that. And it's just got more sensors on it, a bit more wind resilience, that kind of thing.
So to all my friends at home, there's a link below the video to you can fund the podcast. You've heard the prices.
That's it. That's the money I'm after.
Well, I'm very fortunate. One of my kind subscribers bought microphones for the podcast.
Oh wow!
£750.
Crikey!
And it's just nice to know that people value what you're doing enough, because we all have self-doubt. We always think, why am I just talking into this camera? Is it helping anyone? I hope it does. And to get not just nice emails from people saying thank you, but also people who fund me through Patreon and soon to be YouTube memberships and this kind gentleman. It's
amazing.
It is amazing.
Nice to know. Good to know that there are some people out there in the world who are still, kind enough to share, isn't it?
Yes,
and help other people.
Yes, it is. It's really appreciated.
Yeah.
So, Matt, where can people find you? And obviously, we'll put all the links with the YouTube video. Yeah,
that's it. Thank you. So, the kind of the drone training side of things is uavhub.com. That's the drone training school. The thing that I do now, though, is I try and train people and help people and mentor people. So through aviation in general and the drone thing, if people want that. We've got a YouTube channel that's been going for about a year. I think we're coming up on 7,000 subscribers now. And we've not put anything on for a couple of months just because of the whole, we've rebuilt the studio in a spare room at home in the last couple of weeks and got it ready pretty much to start. Well, you're the first person that we've kind of talked to in the new studio. So it's just been a weird time, but you can catch up on that. That's Mr. MPW on YouTube. And we're about to launch a new YouTube channel called The Drone Mentor. Because what we're finding on the Mr. MPW side is that there were people coming for the aviation content because they want that. And there were people coming for the drone content because they want that. And the feedback when we've asked for it was like, look, we love the drone stuff or we love the aviation stuff. But we don't really, a lot of people do cross over, but there's an element out there that don't. And I think we can just serve people better. We can help people at a more granular level and not waste their time and our time ultimately by splitting it out. So it's Mr. MPW at the moment and the Drone Mentor. And I'm not sure how quickly we'll get this out live, but the Drone Mentor goes live a week after we're filming this now. So potentially by the time you guys and ladies are hearing this, seeing it, it will be live. The Drone Mentor.
Who made your introduction video? Because that looked very professional on your YouTube channel.
We did. So again, quite lucky. We effectively, even though we do drone training and aviation training, the way we looked at it was to set up a media company so that we can do all the marketing and advertising and things like that through the YouTube channel and stuff. So we actually had a full-time editor and videographer working with us for a long time. And unfortunately, because of the way that the businesses have gone over the last 6 months because of the pandemic, we've had to furlough those people. But yeah, so a very talented lady called Lauren Burnham was the lady who pulled that together, and she's got a company called Prickly Peach Films. Again, a big shout out to Lauren for helping us out and getting us to where we were.
Congratulations, Lauren. It's a great video.
Yeah, that's it.
So, Matt, stay on the line after I've said my goodbyes. Obviously, the first one to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, especially at such short notice.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely, I love this podcast because I just get to meet nice people and grounded people and people that we can have these sort of chats that hopefully help our younger friends out there that are thinking about the military and that sort of thing, or people now thinking about buying a drone. So thank you ever so much.
Cheers.
To our friends at home, much love to you all. Keep smiling. If you can like and subscribe, that would be wonderful. And we'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao. Hello, friend. I hope this finds you well. My name's Chris Thrall. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando, and I fought my way back from chronic trauma and addiction to live, work and travel in 80 countries across all 7 continents, achieving all of my dreams and goals along the way. Now I pass my simple system on to other people, but I can only help you if you like and subscribe. So please do so, because you get one life, and if you live it right, one is enough.